there was nothing to add or remove in the first place. And I remember in that moment, as I'm having that experience, just opening my eyes and looking at you and being like, what have we done?
On Faces of Five, I speak with people about their 5-MeO DMT experiences working with me. Learn more at chadcharles.net. Hey, Max.
Hi, Chad.
We just figured out when it was that you had this experience when you first had a guided session with 5-MeO DMT. It was early 2025. And thank you for coming on to Faces of Five and sharing a little bit about your experience and perhaps the impact that it's had on you and your life since then. You and I have known each other for quite some time. We're friends. And so having you come into my private practice was pretty special for me too. It's special to bring somebody I know into my work. And it's important. And it also adds perhaps a level of complexity to an already existing relationship. Not that I was anticipating some sort of complication in that regard, and yet it's a broadening somehow of being friends where you are receiving something that I'm offering in a, let's say, a professional sense or some sort of context that is therapeutic, magic,
Yeah.
and very focused on you, right? It's a one way kind of deal. And that's not
Yeah.
usually how we operate as friends and peers in this world. So, all that to say, it was special for me. And I think another thing that was special for me was that I don't often, it's pretty rare for me to begin working with someone with injection as opposed to inhalation. And yet, I think I built off of our pre existing relationship and said yes to injection. And I think it was your idea. If you,
It was.
yeah, yeah. So maybe elaborate a little bit about why you decided to have a guided session with 5-MeO DMT and why you decided on injection as opposed to inhalation.
Yeah. And I would like to say that all of this was rational, but I don't think all of it was.
Sure.
And as you said, we'd known each other for a while. And so I'd seen like I knew you were offering five, and five had just never called to me. Is never in the cards for me in a sense. And I was coming back from a retreat in Iceland. I was in this moment in time where I was going through healing a very deep vulnerability wound that's tied to my mother. And there was a sense of like really being in a different place with surrender and allowing myself to be held in my vulnerability. And so I think the fact that you're my friend, having also having wounds around betrayal from friends at a very young age, there was this aspect of like, oh, I'm trusting someone, a friend with my vulnerability, even though it's in the professional context. And also, um, it felt like at that point I had the level of surrender that somehow I thought was appropriate for five. Like, in whatever that means, right? But like in a not necessarily in a rational, oh, I know this, but like more in a, oh, in my body, I feel like the next step is actually surrendering, trying to see if I can surrender to an experience and to let go of control. And in a sense, it felt like a test of, am I able to do this?
Yeah. Did that sense of it being a test, is when I think of a kind of a generic way of approaching a test, did it feel like pressure?
No, it didn't feel like pressure. And there's a bunch of things that are linked, but my experience with other psychedelics was also, like I heard people talk about their experience on psychedelics, and my inner experience of them feels very different than what people are describing. Namely, in the ego death area, I've experienced it in a different way, whatever that means. And there was a sense of like, I feel like five is the ultimate verification in a sense, or like the ultimate sense of like of where I might get an answer as to what that difference might be. Or is it just that like I'm able to maintain control in the psychedelics experience and I'm actually not experiencing the ego death, even though I've done very substantial doses of LSD. Like it still felt the same for me, and I was like, okay, I think that if something is going to disprove this, then
Mm,
five is going to be it.
right.
And so there
You
was this
know,
curiosity to go see, like to go see
yeah.
what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And namely the full release was what was calling, in sense that if my experience stays until full release, then I guess that's just my experience.
Right.
Like
Right, right. Sometimes when I think of that test or the verification, I like that. It's almost like, sure, I've had other experiences with other substances, and then, what is the unique perspective or angle that I can see myself through, or that I can experience source or the all
mhm,
through? And I don't know, see if this metaphor resonates with you, but sometimes rather than a test, not as opposed to a test, but I think it's somehow adjacent, as I imagine an experience with 5-MeO DMT, regardless of the dose or the intention of whatever threshold that we're intending to meet, the
mhm,
absolute one or the thresholds that come before that, is like this Polaroid snapshot of, hmm, this is where I'm at. This is where my surrender is at right now in
mhm,
life. These are the extent of my opening on some energetic, nervous system, energetic, cosmic level. This is the state of my overall contraction in my mental and my emotional and my physical self.
yeah.
And so we could see it as a test, but yeah, it's a verification of like, oh, here's a like a marker on the wall of like, oh, I was this tall at this time.
Yes,
But then
definitely
at this
that.
time I was this tall.
Yeah. And I think that I'm using the word test more in a, like there's something about the scientific method where you're trying to disprove your hypothesis.
Mm,
Like, right? And there is something in that of like trying to disprove a belief to make sure that it was actually solid versus like, is it just, am I just captured by
right.
illusion?
It's kind of in the same way that I might say we have this tendency to draw conclusions from very small sample sizes.
Yeah.
And so adding to your sample size, not only by with quantity, but with these different perspectives or these different entry points or pathways, let's say.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah. Cool. So why injection as opposed to inhalation?
Because the thread was surrender,
Mm,
injection felt like there was a sense of once I'm in, there's no going back. Like there's
mm,
no choice. Because the experience I wanted was really around surrender, that to me felt like the medium that was more um adapted, or that was preferred for that, because once it was injected, there like I'm there. And
mhm,
right, like
mhm.
there's
Yeah.
also that sense of like I've jumped and now I'm gonna see what happens, but there's no possibility of grasping for the, there is possibility, but I mean at that point like there's no more no possible, in a sense.
Yes. Would you care to call it a play-by-play or, from the point of injection, maybe a little bit of a recall? I like the word journey specifically for an injection ROA because there's this longer arc
Mhm,
from onset to peak to plateau to the descent, if you will. So there might be parts of that time that are easy to articulate, and there might be parts that are not easy to
mhm.
articulate. But are you willing to take a stab at it here?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because it started so quick. I think I'd asked you like from injection, like how long does it take before effects happen? And you told me something like it can be like anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes, depending. And the needle left my arm and I was already having, I had fractals. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be quick. Like I just remember thinking, wow, that was instant. and and as the thoughts like happened, like there was this very much like steep for me ascent, it felt like. And so
Mm.
as soon as the thoughts started happening, I remember just having kind of contraction in the body or just feeling my body a lot and feeling places where it was stuck. And so there was just a movement of like, whoa, like just, okay, this is coming on, and just like feeling the somatic of like, okay, the body is releasing and I'm like, whatever tension is there, I'm moving through that tension. Um, and there are like couple of flash moments on that upwards journey. I was just like, I remember having the distinct thought of like anybody that's currently linked energetically to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but you're in it with me. Like I was like, I don't know what I've done to these people right now. And so I remember having that thought, and as I had that thought, I could see kind of my. It felt like somebody was pulling a thread. You know, when you pull a thread on a shirt or something, and you can see it unravel. It felt like
Mm.
my thoughts were being pulled that way, and it was unraveling. Like as soon as I was having a thought, like it's almost like I couldn't hold on to the thought. It was being unraveled as fast as it was surfacing, in a sense.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that was very much on the way up. And so it was like just being pushed. It felt like being pushed, and anything that I could try to even thought trying to hold on to thought was impossible, as they were being frayed in real time
Mm.
as they were arising. And then so that was kind of the, call it a tunnel or whatever it was. It just felt like acceleration is what I'm going to say. But this feeling was a feeling of acceleration. And as that was happening, there's some point where I started thinking or started feeling the earth, or feeling the global consciousness, if you want, is the way that I'm going to describe it.
Mm.
And there was just an observation of the situation that we're in, a sense, like that we're all cooking in. And there, at that point, for even though thought became experience in real time, if that makes sense, right? Like it's not as much as I was holding on to a thought, but I was having experiences, and there was not much language to what I'm describing. So I'm using language right now, and I think that in that moment the ability for my mind to think in language was completely gone.
Uh-huh.
So the, even though I'm using words right now, it, this was all experiential. There was no words in the experience.
Right.
It was all felt sense. It
It's the
was not
space
like, oh,
before
I'm
a
having
word.
this thought about this. It's I'm
Yes.
feeling this.
Yes.
And so it was feeling the body of the earth in that moment. And there was this sense of like someone's gonna have to love it all. Like unless we're
Mm.
willing to love all of it, we're gonna keep being in this mess. Like and loving the mess, loving all of it, there was a real sense of having a heart opening, and I could feel myself opening, and I felt like I was reaching a threshold of heart opening.
Mm.
And there was a question being asked, like in this felt sense, there was a sense of, are you willing to love it all?
Mm.
Are you willing to open up more to see if you can love, not to see, but like, are you willing to be the one, in a sense? Okay, other, like someone has to do it. Is it you? Like, is the
Mm.
question that was there. And I call that kind of the Jesus moment, because there was like, it really felt like there was this test of like, are you willing to love everything? And I remember that in that moment, the sensation was that if I opened that much, I would be obliterated. There was a sense of, if I say yes, I don't know what comes out the other way, and I don't know if I even survive this. There was a real sense of dread in taking that step and saying yes.
Mm.
And for lack of a better word, there was a yes in my body, and I opened that big. And at that point, I think, and I don't know how long that was, right? Like I've lost of time in that moment, but at that
Yeah.
point, I think I lose, like there's a moment where I'm not there anymore.
Right.
And probably doesn't last that long, but I definitely, there's a loss of time and space and history in that moment of like just opening. But at some point, I know I'm back. Like, and so it's like, it's
Hmm.
pretty quick, but there's a sense of, okay, nothing. And then and I know nothing, but like it's a really quick bookend, right? It's like
Yeah.
describing nothing is like there's memory, there's a gap, and there's memory, and I know that there's a gap just because there's memory on each side, but I don't know what's in the gap.
Yes.
Um, and so, and when I come back, there's a real sense of like, oh my God, it's so beautiful,
Mm,
but also in that moment, a sense of what have we done? I have this vision of Earth, like from the outside, and there's this I see it as a pinprick, right? Like as a little point dot. And like what I'm feeling is all of the sound, all of the experiences, all of the things that make this life what it is. They're all on that little spot. And then if you go in any direction for for light years, which is millions of years in any direction, there is only emptiness and
mm,
silence. And there's a sense of like, we're home, this is home, and this is the only place that can nurture us. Like this is it. Like there, it doesn't matter where you are on this planet, you're already home. It's very much is Earth, and it very much is you're at the one place where you could be. No other place can support us in this way. And in that experience, there's the experience of how anything, like it's already perfect. There was nothing to add or remove in the first place. And I remember in that moment, as I'm having that experience, just opening my eyes and looking at you and being like, what have we done? And there's like
mm,
a streaming of tears. And there's this moment of like, oh, wow, like we fucked it up big time. There was nothing to add or remove in the first place. Like, that's really the feeling I'm having. I'm like, we did all of this and like we've complicated everything, but really, like, it was all there to begin with. Like we just made more complicated systems in the end that like felt like really illusory in that moment of like there was nothing to fix. Like it was already perfect. And that I feel was like kind of the peak of where I was in. There was a couple moments of like seeing the place that we are, like Earth, as sort of heaven or hell, and really having this sense that the Bible is kind of an instruction book, and it can be either or. Like you can see it as one or the other. You're already in it, and you're gonna make it heaven or you're gonna make it hell, like for yourself, right? Like there was really this sense of like, be careful how you interpret it because it's literally here. Like it's this is the place that they're describing. And it was like this understanding of like the metaphor in it of like depending on how you decide to have your experience, this is going to be hell or this is going to be heaven. They're not talking about some other place.
mm. Kind of
Why
a
the Bible came in that moment, I have no clue, right? Like I'm not a Christian. There's just this sense of this happening. And as I was coming down from those experiences and those feelings, um, there then came this sense of like euphoria and absolute total complete love for myself. There was this sense of like the whatever test that I had in mind, like I just passed. Like I said yes to the thing and I was willing to let
yeah.
go of myself to find out what was on the other side. And it very much felt like a letting go. Like I didn't know what was on the other side. It was like I might die, but I'm willing to find out.
Mm,
And in that moment of like coming back and realizing, wow, I'm crazy. Like I'm insane for being willing to, there was this real sense of like, wow, I'm actually willing to do this. Like the question was asked and it felt as real as it could feel. And I said yes. And then in that moment, there was just this love for the character, like for the, like in French, there's like, yeah, it's for the character. I was like, wow, like I love my character. Like I
mm.
love Max, the ego,
Yeah.
like absolutely in love with the character that I've built. And I know that I'm not it, but also I love the character. And there's just this
Yeah.
real sense of that, like of being like, wow, I love that I'm that crazy, that I'm willing to find these things out, that I'm willing to let go of this. And like there was this real sense of like, oh my God. And I remember hugging myself and laughing and just being like, wow, like this is so fucking cool.
Yes.
Um, I would say those are the highlights of the experience as far as I can tell, like as far as I can remember.
The light, I don't know if it gets much higher. Those are highlights for sure.
Yeah. And that's to say, I remember telling you after, like, if I had one of these things, I would have considered this like a really good experience. And like, it felt like I got so many huge pieces.
Yeah.
like through the experience, that like at least three significant ones. And I was like, this is beyond anything that I could have imagined as a outcome, right? Like,
Mm,
and so yeah, it was significant. And it
yeah.
felt significant in the moment. Like it's not like, oh, after the fact I've reflected and I like it was instantly like, wow, this is huge.
Yeah. So in that moment, there's this recognition of the bigness that's there, the extremity, right? It is extreme, like just as you said, is like, can I open to that extent? It is almost by definition extreme because you are at the extremities of yourself.
Yeah.
And the invitation is to go beyond that because you're at the limits of yourself. That's the absolute threshold.
Yeah.
And
Something in you has to rip, like is what I'm gonna say. Like in a sense,
uh-huh,
not a ripping in a difficult for me was a
violent
bad,
way.
but
No.
something has to give. The envelope will have to stop enveloping, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Good one. Yeah, exactly. And so there's this apprehension, right? This like realization in that moment at that time. There's a gap because, yep, there was you surpassed the threshold
Mhm.
and there's no self to remember. You come back. There's these layered kind of relationship, eyes in relationship to not only the cosmos, but to this speck, to this earth, to this Gaia,
Mhm.
and and the gift and the responsibility of that, right down to the you, the character, the Max, who is living this life on this Gaia, on this pinprick of oceanic vastness. So in this moment, you're having these, it's landing, right?
Mhm.
It's big. How and you just said something like this isn't something that you thought of later and reasoned with yourself. It was very much felt in that moment. How does that feeling, that realization, that's kind of a knowing in a
Mhm.
sense, right? In and in English we have to contextualize to know, whereas in French we use the other to know verb. But um, how do you continue to know that? I mean, is it something inescapable and obvious in yourself now? Is it something that you need to remind yourself of in particular ways? How do you continue to live that knowing?
It's an interesting one. There's a lot to unpack there. I've found other things since, and there's practices that definitely help. I'm a big fan of Latian, as you know. I don't know if
Right.
people watching know what Latian is, but Latian is a blindfolded practice where you essentially connect with the everything, connect with the
Mm,
one. The point of this spiritual practice is that the way to know God or the universe is not through words.
right.
It's through
Yeah.
experience and it's through a letting go of the person. Like I like to say that Latian is all of your life you learn to be someone, and Latian is learning to be no one.
Mm,
Um, and in that practice, there's tastes of what I've experienced. There's reminders, and the knowing that I've acquired in the five is a knowing that I can't unknow. Like there's
mm.
it's like telling someone that has learned math, forget what 2 plus 2 equals, right? Like you just know that it equals 4. I can't
It's
tell you to forget
obvious.
it. Like you
Mm,
can't forget it. It's like once you know how to read, you know how to read,
yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
unless something happens to your brain, you know how to read. And so this is a similar thing where like I know that my experience of reality is now through that lens.
Mm,
And more is, I would say, as I've now what a year change plus like a year or 6 months later, like the what I will say is that for me reality has kept unraveling in significant ways. And I
like the thread in the cloth.
yes. And so different experiences, but there was also a sense of like, oh, this is what I was looking for. There's no like I can keep playing, but I'm not seeking as much
Hmm.
anymore.
Well said.
there was very much a sense of like that I don't, it doesn't get further than this. Like the whatever it was that was seeking in me has found the thing that it was seeking. There was a real sense of that.
Mhm. Yeah. And so you have not found, because this isn't you're no newbie to personal and self and spiritual development, but there are existing practices, activities that support that remembering. You
I would
took
say relating to, like what I
oh
would describe it as is I'm in a relationship with those, and I don't want to call them concepts, but let's call them concepts just to grasp it. Like
yeah,
I want to say I'm more in relationship with that space.
yeah.
And so the space that I was in during that experience, then I try to keep being in relation with that through those practices.
And so, like you said, it's not something that you can unknow. I'm curious if it's nevertheless something that you could forget.
At times, like
Mhm.
I can get caught in my characters like anyone else, right? Like I can be really absorbed with what Max is feeling in any given moment. And in my current experience, things can really take me out. Like I could get triggered just like anyone else, and those things do happen. But I would say it's a momentary forgetfulness when I'm out of that moment that is still present with me. Like
Mhm.
those things are still very much there, and
Mhm.
there's like the love for myself, for instance, that I felt has only grown, I think, since then,
Yeah.
right? And more deconstruction has happened on the ego side. Like, if you want, like, there's less things that I'm attached to. There's a lot of perspective that has been gained. When I come back from being in whatever it is that was really absorbing me and felt really important at the time, there's this laugh of like, I remember the cosmic joke in a sense, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the character. I really got, that really took me for a loop. And
Ah.
I got really invested in that thing in that moment. But once I kind of snap out of it, it's not too long that I snap out of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just having a human experience.
Yeah. And the human experience is, like you said at the beginning, perfect.
Yes, and it's
There's
getting
nothing to
caught in
take
it,
away or to
and part
add
of it is
to,
getting
but
caught in it and being blinded by the present moment thing that seems so important. And it's like, zoom out on a 10,000 year time scale. Like, who cares that the freaking steak is burnt tonight? Whatever it is. There's, or then
sure.
like what happens is this thing seems super important. I'm like trying to prevent it from happening. And then it happens and something else happens because of it that turns out to be exactly perfect. And I'm reminded again of like how my attempts to control things are just wait a little before you make a conclusion and see how it turns out, and it might turn out great, way better than you thought it would.
It sounds like what you're describing, this human experience, is when, the sense of the character, the I, is in relationship to its identifying features, right? The
Yes.
world around us, the relationship. So it's quite interpersonal, actually, most of the time.
Mhm.
And you spend a lot of time in relationship to the transpersonal, right? There's a lot of your activities, your practices are going beyond the interpersonal and going into the transpersonal.
Mhm.
So this is well trodden territory for Max from
Yes.
my own perspective of you as a friend. And so here in your journey with five, as you described this accelerated ascent where there's this threshold beyond which there's this gap, and from which there's this, and I'm back
Mhm.
somehow. Would you describe that gap as beyond personal? If it's not transpersonal, what would it be in regards to or in relationship to the person?
Yeah. um and here I think we have to define terms, because depending on who talks about the transpersonal, Jung's transpersonal is not the same as whoever wrote the levels of consciousness. I forget his name. It's like there's this wheel system, and he talks about society I would have to find the
Oh,
book.
yes.
But his definition of transpersonal is a bit different than Jung's definition of.
Hmm.
So some people have transpersonal at the level of archetype, but archetypes are still somewhat personified.
Sure.
Like the mother, as opposed to your mother, is still personified as a
Sure.
embodiment of something, versus, let's say, Earth is very much the transfer. Like Earth doesn't have a personality.
Right.
Like, and so I would say that realm of the void or is beyond differentiation.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And this very much what I'm going to say now is something that I've come to after the fact. So this is a reasoning about it or a felt sense of it. But like in the concept of Shiva and Shakti, Shakti cannot exist if there's nowhere for her to watch herself from. If everything is in movement and there's no stillness, there's no place to observe from because
Hmm.
everything is moving. And so it's impossible to get a reference point.
Yeah.
And so my experience of that space is a space without the reference point.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
That's the best way that I could describe it is if you remove a reference point, what's left? That
Great.
space.
That's great. This is you're effing the ineffable like the best of them.
And it's interesting because I both have the sense that the words don't do it justice, but also it's perfectly describes what it is. It's
Yeah.
kind of, if you have the experience and someone hears these words after the fact, they'll be like, oh, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's why I love this term, this phrase, effing the
Mhm.
ineffable, because this idea of like, is it ineffable? Well, yes, it is. And yet we try anyway to describe it. And so
Yes.
we F around what is ineffable. And it can be done. We do actually have very good words that, of course, they are not it, but they point towards it.
Yes.
And the pointers have different proximities from the it.
Yeah,
And so
totally.
there is language that has a very close proximity to the it. And when I think of anything being a pointer towards the one, the
Mhm.
all, that which is beyond reference, etc., I think of 5-MeO DMT as being, and perhaps this is what you intuited, entering into a guided experience with five, having known lots of other spaces with other substances, is that the proximity of five to the it, the
Mhm.
all, the one, what have you, is perhaps the closest. I mean, if I just go by the accelerated ascent, how directly you arrive from the injection point to that final ask in the invitation, that
Mhm.
you're already at the limits, the final threshold of self. So the direct is, the proximity of the five as the pointer to the one is so incredibly close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps the closest. I don't know.
I think it
Yeah.
opens a path because I've recently done LSD and we started chanting at some point. And
Mm.
through the chanting managed to kind of reach a certain point where I became vibration
Yeah.
and kind of once again like rip myself apart by just becoming sound. And
Sure.
it was like a different path but a similar felt sense of like just once again reaching the threshold, and then my physical body couldn't make the sound and had to open to another in another way, and that was where it happened. And it was a very similar, oh, I know this path, I've done this before in a sense, right?
Mm.
Like
Mm.
there's a knowing in me that like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah. Many pathways towards the one.
Yeah, but it feels like through the five experience that has enabled me to now, with other psychedelics or even without psychedelics, to have an easier access to that point.
Hmm. Do you think it's because now the experience that you had with five has revealed where all the pathways are going?
Maybe, I think so.
Ultimately?
Yes, that ultimately um it's different tools or different melodies to a similar song.
Mhm.
like to the same song, right? Like it's a it's a cover. It's a different cover of the same song.
Nice,
it's
nice.
it's still the same words. It's still the same. It sounds a little bit different, but like same.
Right.
We're still playing the same
It's so
melody.
fun. It's so fun to use the language. I think of the one taste language, right? There's many different flavors,
Yeah.
and all at the end, it's one taste.
Yes, it leads to the same thing.
It's so fun to F the ineffable with you. It's so fun to jam with language. And as much as we've gotten metaphysical here, also recognizing your the impact that this has had in you personally, right?
Mhm.
The being in love with the character that is having a human experience, which means all of these, whether you call them triggers or flaws or compulsions or whatever it is that we have attachment to,
Mhm.
that there's a recognition here in you, at least this is, my viewpoint of it, that it's totally acceptable, uh, if not absolutely perfect, and you're
Totally.
okay with it. But the line that I really really like is that the seeking might be over, but the playing continues. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, and if I had to pick any, like if I had to a choice of life, I'd pick this one again and again and again.
Yeah.
It's been so good, and those experiences, the playing, getting to this point of play and of being like Leela, like the Sanskrit Leela,
Mhm.
really feels like where I'm spending the most of my time now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's accessible and it's just pure joy, like most of the time. And it's not just five. Five is part of the journey and part of the things, but through the practices, through the different things, I'm in this space of wow, like what a chance we get to play in this way in
Yes.
physical bodies and on
Yes.
this earth in this paradise. And even
Yes.
in the like in the complexity in the things that we've created and the paying of taxes and the filling out of endless filling out of forms for our legal existence, like all of that, like
And the disasters that we create and the catastrophes that result in the what have we done?
yeah, like what a game.
It is a joy to share in close proximity this beautiful life with you, Max. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about your experience and the takeaways since. Anything else before we sign off that you think maybe a listener or a viewer would find value in, beyond what has already been shared here?
Yeah, I would say wait until it's like a full body, like fuck yes, to do
Mm.
this thing. It's worth it. I did so much work before I went to five. Like, and people who don't know me, like I like to say that I did in 4 years like a master's degree in max. Like I literally looked at everything that I could look at, and late in that process decided to do five, even though I've been in close proximity with you who facilitates it. Like I think we've known each other for three plus years, and and only when I fully felt called did I decide to do it. And there is very much, I think, such a positive experience came because I was willing to meet those parts and I had learned a language that five was speaking of feeling, of sensations, of, and I was able to be with. And learning that language, not that it has to be done before you do five, but if someone, I believe, learns the language before, it's a bit like, if you've worked out and done the things before you go on a hike, that hike is going to be much more enjoyable, and there's going to be probably less pain and less because you're able to be with. And if someone has cultivated that before going to five, I feel like that's going to help very much understand the language that's being spoken when thoughts get ripped apart.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Chad.